Hello, everyone, and welcome to my podcast. Today, I am on with my dear friend Shelley, who lives in California and is a writer, a teacher of mindfulness and spirituality, a podcaster, among many other things. And really, she is so much more than all of those things, but those are some of the roles that she plays. So, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Alex. Yeah, it was wonderful to have you on my podcast a few months ago. And so I'm so excited to talk to you again. And I would love to get us started in just to arrive and do a very brief mindfulness meditation. How does that
Thank you
sound?
so much. That sounds
Yeah.
wonderful.
Okay, so for you and for all the people that are listening, if you're driving, don't do this. But if you are just hanging out and sitting, I would love for you to join us to begin to take a meditative posture, tall and dignified, and if it's comfortable for you to close your eyes or just take a soft gaze and begin to notice your breath and begin to notice how you are sitting on the chair or the cushion and notice that connection, that weight of gravity that is pulling you to the earth. Breathing in and breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. Uh, and then beginning to notice that your shoulders, noticing your shoulders, drop them down away from your ears. Relax your face, unclench your jaw. Each breath connecting you to life itself. Each breath co creating with life itself. Remembering that we're giving and receiving life with each breath. Taking in oxygen, exhaling carbon dioxide. For all the trees and flowers and fauna, breathing in and letting go, arriving here and now. The past is gone and the future hasn't happened. So let's be together here and now. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes and come back into the space together. The light in me sees the light in you. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. It reminded me of this little book I'm reading by Thich Nhat Hanh called How to Eat. And he talks about how each grain that you eat or each grape is the whole universe in it. The stars are in it, the sun is in it, the wind, the dirt, the water, all of it, everything that it took. And like what you were saying with our inhales and our exhales, it's so cool that we are one
Yeah,
simultaneous flow with everything. And I think that's a huge practice if we can expand ourselves beyond those boundaries and see our interconnectedness with everything.
it's such a practice. I love that you're reading that book, and I love that example of our food that we get from the earth. Like how many things had to happen before it was received to us on the plate, and for us to make it. How many people had to cultivate it before it gets to the grocery store and then gets to our tables, and just remembering that really helps me remember that we are all interconnected, and people think that's so woo woo, but it's really not. It's just the truth. And we can't we all rely on one another. And especially now, I think it's an important thing to remember.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. And he said too when he was talking about it that, well, because a lot of us will just eat food. I mean, I do it too sometimes, but I do always pray now, which helps me very much slow down. But a lot of times you go through and you eat and you don't really think about it. And not that you have to sit there processing the whole thing every time, but just holding that knowing, like you said, of everything that went into it. And it's not just for food, it's for everything.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that was an extraordinary way to start the interview. Thank you so much. And I think we could start just by asking a little bit about your story, of what your life's like, your spiritual path, what got you to where you are today, and what you do, what you live for.
Thank you so much. That's a really big, open ended question. And I appreciate it. Just really briefly, like a little bit of my background. I was born and raised outside of Boston, Massachusetts, and I moved to California in 1995. I've always been a seeker and a creative being, although life does have other plans to continue to be the truth of who you are often in life. So I always like to say that I was, it's really interesting that the path of my life. I'm almost 55 next month, and I don't and I it's really weird right now to be looking back on my life as I move into this latter part of my years, I guess, in a sense. And so I remember my spiritual path was always like kind of come in parallel with all the other things that I would be doing in my life. And I really think about the one thing that brought me in this trajectory with the now bringing us together because of Ram Dass, is because of Wayne Dyer. I When my son was 2, he's 22 now. We had a flood in our house, and we had to leave our house for 6 months, and we had to move into an extended stay hotel. And it was a 2-bedroom hotel room. It was very sterile, and the it was like a polyester rug, and uncomfortable beds that were only like maybe 10, 12 inches thick. And I would just wake up every night around the same time at around 3 a.m. And I mean, this is back in 2004. And so, it was before streaming, and so I would wake up and I would turn on the TV, and I would turn on PBS, and there was Wayne Dyer, always walking the
Mm.
stage, talking about the power of intention, talking about Lao Tzu and the middle way, and just how we can change our realities by just believing, and believing in ourselves, and believing in God. And at the time, and just this co-creation of it all, and manifesting. And I definitely could say that I wasn't like surrendered to God at that point, for sure. It wasn't, was not brought up spiritually. I was brought up culturally Jewish, and it was wonderful, in terms of the values that it instilled. However, just believing in the divine took a long time. Say that.
Yeah.
And so it was, so then fast forward, and my friend introduced me to Ram Dass. I went to my first Maui retreat. It's unfortunate I never got to meet him when he was out of his wheelchair, but I was so grateful I got to meet him when he was on Maui. And Wayne Dyer actually he was the person that helped Ram Dass get the house that he did after he was stroked. So,
I was just writing about that the other day. And I love that because those were my two. Dwayne Dyer was my first teacher. And I was
oh,
almost brought tears to my eyes when you were speaking of him. And then I found Ram Dass because of him. And then Ram
yes.
Dass, and I just found a little CD of his the other, like yesterday, and put it in the little book giveaway by my house. So I've been feeling him a lot. I love that you
Mm.
brought him up, and that
Oh,
he's the one that helped Ram Dass get his home and everything when Ram Dass was kind of upset with himself. I think that he hadn't saved any money and had always given everything away and taken so little. And then God came through Wayne Dyer to put him on Maui, where we all go, where the retreats are, where the temple is, and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so amazing. I love that. That's such a great synchronicity, and my whole body just got lit up with goosebumps when you were talking about that. So that's really divine there in itself. And I really, Wayne Dyer still is like his teachings are just still so relevant, and I think the same with Ram Dass. And really, what brought me Ram Dass was the first person to help me remember who I am. And I was, in the throes of motherhood, being a young mother, and I think my children were like 10 and 8 or something like that or even 12 and 11 or something or 13 and 11. No, I don't. Anyway, around that age when I went there, and I was lost in this role of motherhood. I was totally like, well, I was being a mother. I was being a worker, working full time in Silicon Valley, providing with my husband, creating a home, doing all the routines and all the things. But, when as many Americans feel that once you achieve all these capitalistic dreams, you forget who you are. And I remember going on the retreat, um, and it was really a lightning bolt of, oh my God, I don't know who I am anymore. And so when Ram Dass was talking and giving his lectures, or just telling his story, and he really resonated. I never heard the term unconditional love before,
Wow.
and I just never knew what that was about or what that really meant. And I remember he was talking about his mother, and he was talking about his Jewish mother, and even though she was gone for such a long time, he still had challenges with the relationship. And I thought that was so human and so interesting. When he was in his late 70s, early 80s, must have been his
Wow.
early 80s. And it's like, healing is not linear, and we can only change ourselves. And so he's, kind of having this discussion on the platform for everybody. And I was like, oh my gosh, wow, here's this, social psychologist, brilliant man who's done all the things, still having a challenge with this relationship. So I had in my mind, I was like, oh, I have this whole thing I want to go tell him about. He grew up in Newton. My dad grew up in Newton, Massachusetts. He came from a Jewish background. I did as well. I was like, oh, I have all these things I want to share with him, and bond with him and talk to him. And so I had this whole story made up in my head. And he was in the dining room at the retreat, and I went to go speak to him, and I got down at his eye level, and I was just said hi. I was like, I have a Jewish mother too. So he laughed, because there's all this like typical stuff that goes with that.
Yeah.
It's loaded. The worrier, the worrier, and did you have enough to eat, honey? Kind of, nurturing vibe, but also can be very, just doesn't too over involved.
I know what you mean.
Yeah. So in any case, that's all I got to say to him, because in a moment when I looked into his eyes, the world dropped away. And all I saw was his pool of blue eyes, endless. And
Mhm.
all I could say was, I love you. And when he said it back, I knew he meant it. And then I lost it, and I ran away, because the feeling was so overwhelming, and I just started sobbing.
Yeah, I can't imagine. That's so incredible you and him connected in that space of love. And I would have done anything to get to meet him. That's incredible. And I know what you mean with the storylines. Like, I want to tell him this and this and this. And then when you're in that moment, it totally cuts through to like the heart and the presence. And at my Zen retreats, I do the same thing because the Roshi there is
Mhm.
really powerful. And I'll be in the meditation and thinking, when I get my time with the Roshi, I'm going to talk about this and that.
Right.
And then when you get there, and you don't get a lot of time there, it's because it's like strict Zen. So it's like a few seconds and he rings the bell. But I never get to say the things I think about saying. And it over 3 times of going there, it reminds me that that's not so much what matters, and like to focus on the
Mhm.
spirit and the essence and the love. But wow, that's an
Yeah.
incredible story. And you also said about the parenting, that you were a parent at that time of young children. And I know you told me before recently, just earlier today, that one of the things you help people with and work with people is with conscious parenting.
Mhm.
And maybe you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
Mm.
Yeah, so I have two wonderful children. Their ages 22 and 19 now. My son is 22, my daughter's 19. And there came a moment, in a parent's trajectory, and I think age 10 and under, we're just about keeping them safe, keeping them fed, nurtured, loved. But you're going through all the routines of the day, and they're still forming their personalities and all the things. And there comes a time when they start to change and they become who they are. And sadly, it took a really tragic turn for my son at age 13 and a half, 14, when he had a a mental illness break. And it became this journey of realizing that I can help him, I can guide him, I can support him, but I have to heal myself so that I can be the best parent for him. And so it just became this, and now it's been an 8 long journey, and he's stable in his version of recovery. And I say that because I think his recovery should look different. A bit, but that's me. That's my expectations. That's not him. He has to be his own person and have his own journey. And I told Ram Dass, thankfully he was still alive, and I told him what I was going through because I really needed advice about, what can I do to be the best parent I can be. And I'm in so much grief over how I thought my life would be with my children. And so I wrote him a letter at one of the retreats, and because I didn't know that, they always would say at the retreats, keep your distance, don't, because he was very fragile in his wheelchair. He was in a lot of pain and could get sick easily. I mean, it was just amazing that how he would always like get the energy and the gumption to just, I want to be there for everybody. And he was in constant pain. But in any case, I thought, I'll just write him a letter, and maybe I can ask one of his caregivers to give it to him. So I told him, I said, what do I do? I wrote this article that was published in Elephant Journal about how I just keep on letting go. I'm letting go as much as I can. But it's still so hard. And so he wrote me back, and he called me Durga. And he's just like, you are such a Durga. And you are just, you're going to fight this with your fire and with your love and your tenderness. And so that just became part of my trajectory. And I started reading, I brought the book because this is like the most impactful book teaching for me. It's called Polishing the Mirror by Ram Dass. And it
I'm
really
reading it
helped
right
me.
now too.
You are? Oh my
Literally right
God.
now.
Oh, that's so
I was just
amazing.
holding it like 30 minutes ago.
Oh, oh my gosh, my brother, we are so connected. This is so crazy.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
yeah, I have so many like underlines and ear dog pages, and there's so many amazing wisdom here. And I'll never forget when I was reading this, and I know I'll get back to your question, but about how I was helping other parents, but I had to go through all this so that I could help
Yes.
other parents to get back to their heart center. And I'll never forget, like, this book made me believe in Hanuman. It made me believe in, the divine love. that is accessible and available to all of us. I'll tell this little story. So I read this book on a boat in Mexico with my family. So my son is stable. It's like he's stable enough that we could travel at this point. I forget how old he was, and my daughter, but they were still in school. And we went. My husband we rented a sailboat, and we went to Mexico down to Puerto Vallarta, and we started sailing around all these like little coves, and we anchored in this cove in Yalapa, which was incredibly rocky. Like we knew it was going to be rocky, but we didn't know how rocky. So the boat is rocking while we're trying to sleep, and we couldn't get there was no place to like sleep on shore. I don't remember why we were like, we're just going to do it. um and I'm sleeping in one of the berths, and I'm reading this book in between tequila shots because I just wanted to sleep, but I couldn't, and I wanted to relax, and it was very difficult. So little did I know, my husband and I were sleeping in separate berths because it was just so rocky and it was more comfortable that way. So little did I know he was going out taking tequila shots and trying to go back to sleep. I was coming out and doing tequila shots and going to sleep, but I was reading this. And it was like it was some kind of divine connection to it. And when I was reading,
Yeah.
and then I really understood, it like just sunk in for me, and I was forever changed on that boat in Mexico, drinking tequila and reading Polishing the Mirror. So
Oh, that's so beautiful. I know like those moments when a book or a teaching or a words where it really breaks through like the essence, where you really get the essence and the transmission of it. And
yes.
yeah, I mean, Ramdas does emanate so strongly from you, and I pray that everyone listening can feel his spirit too. But so much of the time you're talking, I feel the emotions, like the love, the bhakti through that, and I feel his
Mhm.
presence here. And I love how you said his unconditional love, because for everyone listening, it's so, until you know it and like and experience it and believe in it, it's sometimes it's hard to take it beyond just a word and to really
Yes.
know that meaning of like that moment when he looked into your eyes. And that true, and just for anyone who doesn't know that or feel that, to know that it's always here, it's everywhere, and that we can all be it, have it, and touch it right now. And if we make, that little bit of effort, that little bit of openness, that little bit of surrender, that God, that the universe will show us our way into that love, that
Yes.
everyone, and we're all worthy to have it. We're all worthy to have
Absolutely. And
it.
that's so beautiful and important to realize. And because I think that we can feel so alone. I mean, I know that I felt so alone many times on this journey of suffering in my grief for my son, and the life that I thought he would have and our family would have. And so I decided that, you know, the Love Serve Remember had these like different different groups like for BIPOC and LGBTQ plus, and I said, we need a parenting one, and it would be really nice to gather as parents to talk about our challenges and how we want to be a conscious parent for our children, to realize that, as that we're all playing these roles, and how do we stay in our heart center to help these beings that have chosen us and we've chosen them to be in this incarnation. And so I would hold Zooms, and we would just read different Ram Dass passages, and then have a discussion. And every single parent that would come and talk to us in a group, we're facing some kind of challenge with their children, whether it be someone deciding to transition, one of their children deciding to transition, or if a child that was grown that had codependency issues, another child that might have had addiction issues, or health issues. We were just there supporting one another, witnessing and listening to that the heartbreak, as well as holding space for the love, and feeling heard. Like it's so it can be very isolating and alone, like, to be a parent that's struggling with their child, because people, for me living in Silicon Valley, it was like I had to protect my child and not share with the world, with my community, what was happening. A few people would know, but it was really, I really had to protect him and not share it because of stigma and bias, and I had to create a facade of normalcy, which was really, really difficult. So, and working and things like that. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
know my parents had to do the same thing when I was growing up with my drug and alcohol addiction, and it's really interesting to see because when I was so young when I got clean, I was just 20 years old. So being around, I was around me and a lot of people from the aspect of the child, the one that has some of the issues going on. So it's interesting now as I've gotten a little older and some of my friends in the Ramdas satsang and sing their with their children like that are older than me from the perspective of the parent having a child that has these challenges. Um, and also I learned so much from Ramdas about and from Wayne Dyer. He used to do the one quote where he says, "Your children come through you but not from you, that they are part of life's longing for itself." And I
Yes.
think that one thing I see is for humans in general, there's the tendency to fully identify someone with their role. And so when you're a parent, and I see it with my friends that have kids, there's the tendency to identify the little child as just this little kid doesn't know anything, um, not seeing and the tendency to do that is so strong because of just the identification and the roles and the
Yes.
attachment and possession. But like
Yes.
you were saying when we talked earlier, remembering that the parent is there to nurture and take care of, but also the child is this great soul that is on this long journey that chose to come through here to be with you to work out these different things and these different karmas, but that if you can give them the space in their life and their incarnation.
Yeah, it's such a hard thing to let go. I mean, I have to let go still all the time. I mean, and the grief is not ever over. Witnessing the child going through challenges and wanting it to be different is such a difficult thing. I'm really grateful that he lives with us, and so I can, make sure he eats and all of the things. I'm still parenting him, and I will never ever not be his parent, whether he lives with us or not. And yeah, it's just a constant letting go, and allowing the child and as a human being to have their own journey. I'm fascinated right now with the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell's work, and I've been listening a lot to the mystic Caroline Myss, who talks a lot about, we just have so much more control. We the only thing we can control is ourselves. So why not go inward and figure out, like, heal all the hurts, heal all the misgivings, and just, it's not to forget about your past and to forget about all the trauma, but it's to make it into something else to be of good, and that's and heal, continue to heal and talk about it, because we as humans need to be heard and validated. And as I'm on this hero's journey right now, I'm grateful that I'm not in the belly of the whale right now, so I can talk about these things. Whereas, if you met me like 5, 7 years ago, I would not be able to talk about this stuff. So I don't know
Yeah.
where I'm going with that, but I mean, my son, and I could say my son is in the belly of the whale right now, but maybe he doesn't think he is because he thinks he's fine.
Yeah, yeah. I remember my mom and aunt were just looking because they were trying to find something on Facebook, but they seen old pictures of me from like 10 years ago or even longer. And it made them sad because it was like pictures of me when I was in my addiction and stuff and just looking like really rough. And So it's interesting how long of a process that can be with the grief and everything like that. And I also noticed that you said the hero's journey, and I've
Mhm.
been seeing that you've been emailing about different writing workshops and things you've been offering and doing with creative writing. And my experience with writing is two things. I've never done much journaling or anything like that. I do love to write. I write blogs, and I'm actually working on, which you might be able to talk more about the creativity on this, but I'm working on a book right now, which I've done a lot of writing on. And I love the expression in that way, and solidifying, in a sense, seeing my ideas, my understanding, my path, and how it really, when you write it, it like comes out in that way. And then I also write Ram's name all the time. And they say Ram Nam, and just writing the for, I don't know anyone looking, but this
Oh,
is like
nice.
Ram's name, which
Yeah.
is a very powerful name of God. And Hanuman, who's the monkey that we talked about up behind us, serves Ram. And that name always comes through me, even when,
Mm,
like, my Ram Dass Polishing the Mirror book just has Rams all over it. So as I read, I write them too, and it comes through me as the love and the meditation and the presence. But I would
mm,
love if you could talk a little bit about creative writing, about that, and how that's a
yeah.
part of your life and practice.
Thanks. Yeah, I've always been a writer and somebody who would journal, throughout my life. I wish I could say I had, my journals from when I was little, but I was an English major, and so I wrote a lot of papers, and then as an adult, I just always kept a journal and would write my thoughts to try to figure myself out and try to learn from myself of how I felt about things in the world at large, as well as my own feelings, thoughts, and emotions. Let's see. So, where do I start? I mean, so I've been writing for about 8 years now, like publishing for about 8 years. I started publishing on Elephant Journal, which is a wonderful indie online digital publication that has beautiful it's a beautiful different types of essays that people write. So that was a wonderful start where I started 8 years ago. I have a bunch of work on there. And then I started publishing on Medium for a little while, which is an online, like kind of magazine aggregator for different writers. And then and I always was writing about spirituality and seeking and understanding the human condition. And then and sometimes gets trying to figure out political things and how I feel about it. And then I started taking it more seriously. And over the last year, I entered this writing community called a writing room, and it's a community online that's founded by Anne Lamott and her son, and Jacob Nordby and a few others. Anyway, so as I became part of this community, something started to happen. I started to call myself a writer for the first time over the last year. And I started writing even more. I got published in The Sun magazine. I've been published in Business Insider, LA Yoga. So I've just been working really hard at the craft. And so one of the things that has really helped me in the craft is free writing. So free writing is when you just like unleash uncensored writing from your consciousness in onto the page. And there's something about so I went to a workshop where we were doing that. And so because of the workshop where I saw an image and some words, I was able to remember a memory that I had for when I was in third grade. I remembered suddenly that I had a Hello Kitty journal. I remembered my classroom. I remembered like this story about being in that classroom, which I won't share right now, but in any case, and then I was able, but it was a painful memory, and I was able to heal it because of the writing. And so I was like, this is amazing. I want more people to have healing through writing. So I created this class that's called Ignite Your Creativity Through Journaling. And what it does is that we come together and we do a brief mindfulness, like what we did in the beginning, and then we each class is a theme, And so one theme might be gratitude. And so what we'll do is I'll show a slide. It has gratitude, it has an image, and it has a prompt. And then people will write for 7 to 10 minutes. And then where the magic happens, so people will write uncensored. And why it's magical is because then we read it out loud. And as scary as it might seem, you're not the recipient is just there to witness. The recipient is just here to hear the person read what they wrote without asking for clarification, without asking for more, without commenting, that was really beautiful, or can you, I don't really get that, or wow, or you just say thank you for sharing. Because what
Oh,
that
that's
does is
good. That's
yeah,
good.
it gives the writer confidence to write uncensored. So it can dislodge old memories and help you heal, or it can create new fantastical tales, which like you could write a whole story that you never would have thought of if you didn't take the time to just be centered and grounded and have something a prompt. So so that's what we do in the class.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. That's really good because when you write like that, a lot of your deepest things just come out. And I've had some experiences also with I was in 12-step recovery for a long time, working with people. So part of that is like the fourth and fifth step in there is writing, and people can write different amounts, but you write inventory and you write all the things that have happened before, and character defects that you have, and you end up
Yes.
writing in the later steps on amends you want to make. But I've always looked at it, and I always tell people still, if I work with them, not as a thing to solidly identify yourself as your past, and
Mm,
not to make it into like a rigid storyline to hold
mhm.
on to forever, but more in that aspect of how they do the work, more like in step 4 with the inventorying and working through traumas and resentments, more to see it and to honor it and to integrate it into yourself and let go of some of the things in it that are holding you back, that are bringing you suffering, but also remembering that there is no really you outside of the present moment. There both
Yeah.
is and there isn't. But for me, it helps a ton to remember that who am I really? Right? Like I'm more than just Alex and his storyline
Yeah.
and what he did and what happened to him. That's just like a small aspect of what I am.
Mhm.
But really, really have nothing but hair now. And I also like the writing. It came to mind that I like in the January of 2021, I was on a beach in Florida and I was in a relationship that wasn't, I didn't even realize I wasn't really happy with it. I didn't realize anything. And then I was writing, I just started writing in this notebook, and I started writing how miserable I was. And I wrote, oh, I hate myself right now, and all these things. And it really gave me a lot of perspective because I didn't even know I was feeling that way. I
Wow.
just kind of started writing, and then I was like, whoa, I didn't know I felt that way. So that was interesting.
Yeah, that is amazing how that can come through. I think it also, but I love what you said earlier about how you would write your past experiences and how you would integrate them and observe them, but they don't become who you are,
Yes,
right? Like
yes.
that's really important because if I didn't have these other tools, if I was just continuing to write and write and write all my misgivings and my pain, then it becomes who I am, right? Where your attention goes, where your energy goes, your attention flows. What is it?
Yes, yes,
You're
yes.
working. What is it?
Something like
Yeah,
that. Something like
yeah.
that.
Your thoughts can become who you are, and we have to remember that our thoughts are not who we are, and our thoughts are just our minds are just there to protect us. So when you were writing and I mean more than just to protect us, but that's just the basic. And so when you were writing about your pain like that, and you didn't realize that, it was like very helpful for you to realize, oh, I didn't know I was feeling this way underneath the surface.
Yes,
So,
yes, it was, and it helped
yeah.
me to end up getting out of that and to get to the next stage and stuff. So yeah, I'm really grateful for it, and I love what you said about the thoughts because that's the key. You know, everybody, mostly in the world, you're completely identified with your thoughts, and you think that's who you are, and you're this person going around doing these things and with these problems, and for me, I learned a lot through study of Buddhism and Hinduism teachers like Ramana Maharshi and
Mhm.
like Nisargadatta Maharaj, being able to see that I can give up some of my sense of doership, some of my sense of thinking myself to be the actor and the controller, kind of
Mm,
like Arjuna, like Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, this fight's going to happen anyway, but don't think you're the actor. Don't think you're the one in control. Surrender the results to me, which is the same as saying do it without attachment. And they
oh,
say, like, the fruits are in God's hands, right? Like the fruits of the labor are not in our hands. And I've realized that when we work without attachment to the outcome, the work's better because there's
yeah.
more energy, there's more presence, there's less fear than when
Hmm.
we are worried about how this is going to be, how this is going to turn out. So the way I deal with my thoughts is that sometimes the mind is very quiet and sometimes there is thoughts, but when there is, I don't stay stuck in them for very long. I
Hmm.
notice the identification and I'm going off on some thought pattern and then I come back to the present. And I
Yeah.
think mantra and meditation and these things are so useful for cultivating that awareness because until we at least have the basic awareness and even philosophical understanding of that concept, we
Hmm.
don't realize there's anything other than our thoughts. And we think
Right,
that's who we
right.
are. Right.
Totally. Yeah, right. Where the phrase "don't believe everything you think" is so helpful, and I think what you what you say sounds very complicated, yet it's not. And I loved what you said about the manifesting and releasing the fear around, wanting something to be a certain way. It's so hard because it's such a balance of efforting and letting go. It's like you're notifying the universe, okay, this is what I want, and then being like, okay, I told you what I want, now you go work your magic. But sometimes, I mean, I know for me, I get caught up in the, okay, well, you have to strive. We get caught up in striving and doing and putting all the things in place, so that we can have the best possible outcome. But surrender, that outcome might look very different from what we expect it to be. But I know that when I hold on and want something to happen really bad, it often doesn't. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even with just our setting up this interview, we were having some technical difficulties at the moment. And then all you can really do in a situation like that is surrender and pray. And I like when I said, Maharaji, help us. And Shelley sang the Hanuman Chalisa before we started because we did all the effort to set
yeah,
everything up to make it work, but then whose hands is it really in, right? How the outcome
right.
comes. And what I work with too, and I think it's important to say because I think a lot of people, and I always hear it, have the misunderstanding that giving up attachment or the sense of doership or of thinking of one as the actor means that you don't do anything or that
Hmm.
nothing
Hmm.
happens.
Right.
But really, it doesn't mean that you do the same things and even more so. And whatever effort you put is what effort you put. But you're not behind it saying, here I am as Alex accomplishing this. I'm doing this. I'm getting it done. So you still are progressing. You still are meditating. You still are doing whatever practices you do, but you're not using it to reinforce a more rigid identity of separateness, a more rigid identity of self. And so that's
Yeah.
how I work with it. It's like I'm acting, but I'm not thinking of myself as the actor, as the doer. I'm trying to surrender it to God or to the deepest part of myself. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so hard. And
Yeah,
like you
it
said, I
is
mean, it's,
hard.
but it's like, but I think that, yeah. So when I started meditating every day, that's when I was able to begin to let go. And I always tell my students, when you're practicing, it's like going to the gym, right? You're not going to get the muscles that you desire, the fitness that you desire if you don't go. And the same thing is with mindfulness and the practices, is that you're not going to feel or see the results of the practices if you don't do it. So even if you're just sitting and practicing for 5 minutes a day, even if you're just chanting one phrase like while you're cleaning, or just for me, that the mantra that always pops up in my head is Om Namah Shivaya, and it comes out of nowhere while I'm doing something. And then the more that I do the practices, the more synchronicities and the more unseen magic I can witness. Like, I mean, incredible things I've been able to witness and see when I'm doing the practices regularly. Like you begin to, the world itself becomes sharper, like the trees become sharper and more clear when I'm meditating for many days in a row for long periods of time, or like I'm more patient in my relationships. I'm not reacting and to my husband's gripes or whatever. If he's upset, I'm not making it about me anymore as much. I'm pausing before I'm responding instead of reacting to my life and my interactions. I'm seeing I'm hearing the crows when I go outside. I'm seeing the roadrunner. I'm seeing the bunny rabbit. I'm seeing all of the magic that is with us all the time. So whether you do it, you just have to do it, whether it's for 5 minutes or
Yeah.
for, go on these long retreats to get back into the groove.
Yeah, it's like any person Ram Dass used to say people see, everybody sees what they can see and does what they can do, and it's like even the
Yes.
littlest bit of step or progress, because if not, like you said, if you don't do anything, well then just nothing happens and then nothing
Right.
changes, you
Right.
know.
Right.
And then that's okay, but if you want to get deeper and to be like everything you said, like more alive and vibrant in life, more connected to the universe. And I did like earlier you said how Ramdas, one thing I wanted to touch back on was talking about his mom, and it made you realize that even after all of the spiritual journey he had, and with Maharaji and meditation and his whole life of being Ramdas, that he still had these things like these challenges.
Yeah.
And one story I love to tell is in the Mahabharata, which is the story, which means great India. Bharat's the old name for India before it was renamed. And it's the story of Krishna and Arjuna and where the Bhagavad Gita comes from and everything. And so a lot of people are familiar with the Bhagavad Gita, which means the song of the Lord. And it's Krishna, the God, speaking to Arjuna on the battlefield and telling him all of this deep wisdom of Krishna's glory and of the universe and everything, how to get liberated, how to get enlightened through karma yoga, through
Mhm.
bhakti yoga, through meditation. But what's interesting is Arjuna in the beginning of that, he's very afraid because he's about to get in this fight and have to kill like a bunch of his family and teachers and preceptors and everything on this battlefield. And he says he's trembling, he can't even move, and he's like, Krishna, what's the point of all this? Even if we win, it won't matter.
Mm.
And so a lot of people know that part of the story, but that's
Hmm.
like a small section of the giant Mahabharata. And in the whole story, you learn that Arjuna is, him and Krishna were two great sages together in a previous life,
Mm.
Narayan and Narayan or something like that. And in this life, Arjuna was the son of the god Indra, and he made friends with Shiva. They fought a battle, and then Shiva gave him these weapons, and he was friends with Hanuman. Hanuman was on his banner, and he was just this incredible being. He went up to the heavens in his human body, even, and like lived there, and he was of the utmost like moral character and spiritual character and discipline. And so the reason I say all that long-winded story is to say he was still afraid and had these didn't know what to
Mm,
do. And
mhm.
so that should give solace to all of us, because sometimes people think like, I just suck, I can't do it, like
Right.
I'm unworthy, this is
Mm,
so hard. And then you see even Arjuna, who is this incredible being, but the Bhagavad Gita comes from him being confused and trembling in fear and not knowing what to do, you know? So it's like
yeah.
even someone like him, even someone like Ramdas still has the challenges.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you have the tools to recognize those challenges, and be the witness to, yourself, and recognizing and nurturing yourself. And I often will say to my meditation students, like, sometimes if it's hard, just, you have to cultivate your own loving awareness, and using the metta practices, which is loving kindness, and putting a hand on your heart and saying, it's okay, honey. Like, be your own parent, and just say, it's okay, honey, it's okay. And just, really remembering that you're not alone, even in the darkness. And yeah, so it's, I've had to do that many times, and the metta practice is really, really powerful, for yourself as well as for the world. So, and we need it. We need empathy, and understanding and compassion, so much right now. So,
Yeah, that love, like you said, we send it to the world who needs it and to ourselves who need it. And
yeah,
it's both. And I love the in Hinduism they have the loka samasta sukhino bhavantu, and lokas
yeah,
all the worlds. And you're saying peace to all the worlds. And in
yes,
Buddhism with the may all beings everywhere be free and be happy.
yes,
And when you do those things and say those prayers and have those intentions, it does make a big difference in the world. And for me, I learned from Ramdas to guilt and shame and self pity and anger, like keep surrendering it, keep giving it up and letting it go. And you see the changes in time, because I'm at a place now where I have very, very little self judgment, because I just see that it's not going to help me. It's not going to get me
mm,
anywhere. But sometimes you know that and you still can't stop it. But if you keep
yeah,
doing the work over time, you can get to a place where it will dissipate to a huge
yes.
degree, and you find a lot of freedom in that.
Yeah, yeah. I hope that for the liberation of all human beings, sentient beings, to be free from suffering. I mean, that's the first noble truth of the Buddha, is suffering. And so, that's why I love, studying Buddhism, and why I studied, for 2 years with Jack Kornfield and Tara Brach, was because I needed to go into it for deeper for myself, as well as to understand it and learn, so that I could teach others, because I want so much. I've really realized that my purpose in my life is to help others heal. It's to write, to help others heal, to be kind, and to one another, and hopefully, impact, people's lives with all of it. So, because I think that we're all worthy of, living a liberated, life. Um, and so I just try to keep that going as much as possible. But I mean, for sure, but I'm human, and I get angry, and I get, sad, and I get righteous, and all the things. And I get, I'm not a perfect human being either. So,
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, Shelley. And we are very connected, because the last thing I was going to ask you was about Jack Cornfield, and then you said it.
oh, nice.
And I had just thought of it right before.
Nice.
Um, Yeah, thank you so much. I did want to say for anyone that wants to connect with you, because you do your writing, your podcast, and all these different aspects, the teaching with the parenting, what you were just talking about, the journaling group. We will put all your links in our bio on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. But Substack is like the best way to reach you
Yeah.
for everything, right?
Yeah, it's really the central place. It's you can find me under Spicy Soul Mama. So kind of like getting all the things together in that branding, whatever. It's
Yes, yes, it
and
is.
so it's yeah, I have so I'm gonna start actually I would love for people to check it out to potentially sign up for my class that I'll be offering in December. I'm going to offer it on Sundays and Thursday afternoons at 4 p.m. Pacific online, and I really feel that it will help people during the holidays to have this time of self care and just do some journaling and be in community. So that's going to start. I'll be publishing those dates this week, but there'll be 6 sessions, 4 to 6 sessions in December for people to join on the Ignite Your
Oh,
Creativity through journaling. So
awesome. Thank you. Yeah, that'll be
yeah.
incredible, I'm sure. Awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thanks for having me, Alex. It was so amazing to connect with you again, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Ram
Yes.
Ram. Namaste.
Ram Ram. Namaste.